Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of APAC Dialogue. Today's guest, we have Mr. Om Prakash Muppirala. He is the head of Fountain in India, and he will take us about the HR applications that Fountain offers in the Indian scenario. Before we start with Mr. Om, briefly, APAC News Network, we are a media organization headquartered out of Noida with a pan India presence and presence across Southeast Asia and Middle East. We primarily focus in technology deployments across government, healthcare, education, BFSI, manufacturing, and technology. So I would like to start with today's guest, Mr. Om Prakash. If you can take us through what Genesis is, Fountain is doing in India, about Fountain's Genesis globally, and maybe an update on the portfolio of solutions and services that you offer. Over to you, Mr. Om.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Om Prakash Muppirala, head of Fountain India. Fountain started roughly around 2015 as a niche platform that helps companies hire hourly employees. That's the term used in US. We started out in US and primarily the gig economy. Customers started using Fountain. That was around the time when the gig economy was booming in the US. One of the things that those startups were running up against were uh, the setting up the app, getting customers was the easier of the problems. They were running into issues when they wanted to hire hundreds, in some cases, thousands of employees on a weekly or a monthly basis. That's where Fountain we came in. We started building out a suite of products. Now it's a full-fledged platform that helps customers, anybody, right? Like it could be hourly employees, temporary employees. In India, it's called blue collar, gray collar. Even in some cases where white collar employees, if they are hiring in high volume, Fountain as a platform will be able to help them, right? So we have more than 200 customers, and even though we started out in US, San Francisco as our headquarters, more than 50% of our income comes from outside the US. Turns out that hiring is a truly universal global challenge. Right? Like the solutions we built were easily transferable to companies in Europe and Asia. And at the beginning of roughly around in the middle of last year, some of the world's largest high volume hiring companies, they were ramping up their operations in India, and they were already customers of ours in US and Europe. So they asked us if our platform would work in India, and then we quickly did a few tweaks, and we were able to start operations with them in India. Now we are full fledged. We have multiple customers. Some of them hire in the range of hundreds of thousands of employees per year, and those companies, they basically now are relying on Fountain to be their high volume hiring partner.
Okay.
Uh,
So I'll come to the India context later.
okay.
Before that, uh, typically you said when you started in 2015 for the gig economy and the workforce hiring, but everything, the dynamics changed in the last couple of years.
Yes.
The whole pandemic, even the hiring was done, it was more a work from home, work from anywhere kind. Even the large, unless it were not very huge manufacturing setups which can't be done from home or from anywhere, other than that mostly it was. So what were the challenges for that time, and how did it impact, how did it change the whole dynamics, if
Sure.
I may say?
Yeah, so roughly around February or March of 2020 is when we started feeling the full effect of the pandemic. And like I said, right, like we have a lot of customers in this space across industries. So very quickly we started seeing some patterns emerge, right? Companies that relied on uh, customers to leave their home and get come into their business. That could be things like um, restaurants, quick service restaurants like Horeca industry, even some very like modern takes on the gig is like dog walking companies, or even bike sharing companies, or like the e-bikes. uh, they got hurt really bad, and it was basically because of the pandemic, right? Like, people are not leaving their home. They don't need dog walkers. They don't need to go out to a railway station and look for an e-bike, right? They don't go to restaurants. They started cooking at home, or they started doing fast food, and then started emerging the resurgence of pretty much you are sitting at home and then the services come to you. I'm talking about grocery delivery, food delivery, uh, all the surrounding economy. They started seeing a surge in hiring, right? So for us, we ended the year 2020. We thought it was going to be really bad, but we ended the year with some growth in our revenue as well, even in 2020. And that was primarily because of all the business we were losing in some sectors. We were actually gaining more than what we were losing. So, in a way, we saw a lot of reshuffling of people moving resources from one side of the gig economy to the other side of the gig economy. And slowly, over the last 2.5 to 3 years, as the pandemic ebbed and flowed, right now it's closer to the end. We can say we are seeing in some countries there is a tendency to go back to the pre-pandemic level. In some countries like India, like we were just discussing in this conference here today, there is no stop. Right? Like they are, like it's continuing to grow. So worldwide, I would say it's a mixed bag, but overall we see a lot of positives than negatives.
And this reshuffling that you talked about. So now, in terms of the vertical, some of the use cases you mentioned, interesting dog walking or the e-bikes, those are specific. What I'm saying, trying to say is now, as maybe the pandemic is nearing its end in most geographies.
Yeah.
So, what are the patterns in terms of the hiring use cases? Is it the older use cases, or have you seen newer use cases emerging?
So I think the use cases are more or less the same, but the volume is going back up.
Okay.
The volume in which people are hiring. So one of the things that has also happened on the side is the workers now have a lot of choice, right? So the platforms are well established. The tech is very prevalent. Much a much bigger part of the population have smartphones. They have access to internet. They are much more tech savvy. So the flexibility or the mobility has only increased. So you could have somebody working for a 10-minute delivery service, and they are sitting and waiting for their next order, and they're browsing their phone. You might see an ad for a competing delivery service, or maybe a delivery driver, or some other gig opening. And within a couple of clicks, people are now able to see other options, even if they don't necessarily jump around jobs. The Just the fact that everything is in your fingertips is actually a much bigger deal to do. And from Fountain, as a platform that caters to a lot of these types of companies, one of the trends we are seeing is the churn rate, which is how much of your workforce is quitting on an ongoing basis. And the churn rate is actually increasing, right? And that is where your how good your brand is, how good your company culture is, how well you are paying your employees, how quickly you are paying your employees, how are you treating your employees, how are your supervisors, are they invested in these employees, are you providing them like health benefits, social security, social protection, or even on the job training or life skills training, uh, you see a pattern here, right?
You
Like
mentioned.
very, very similar to how traditional employment is going. You can see a similar pattern here, right? Like you, as employees, you need to still earn the
Okay,
trust of your other people who work. Otherwise, people tend to leave.
understand. So now specifically coming to the Indian context, you mentioned, and obviously the examples you are giving, it's primarily blue collar, gray collar, and some cases even white collar workers. So I would like to understand a couple of things. One, whatever the best way to understand, if we whatever references you can give Indian customers, that would give an idea. So whatever are referenceable Indian customers, and more importantly, if you can give maybe two, three use cases in the Indian context, what sort of employment, and maybe briefly explain the hiring
Sure.
process.
So I can give a few examples, right? Like one is your one of the most common forms of gig platform gig is delivery drivers, right? A very large e-commerce company has been using us for a while now across the world to hire delivery drivers, right? In this case, the requirements are very, very cut and dry, right? You need to have a driver's license. You should be over 18 years or older. You should be able to pick up 50 pounds or more weight, and a few other like very, very objective questions, right? Plus, you should be
Their background and antecedents, that isn't that a legal requirement?
background checks.
Background
Yes,
checks.
so that is definitely part of the process. But to start out with, again, as a platform, we are able to put these questions out to the candidates, and very quickly we will, without a lot of recruiter involvement, we'll be able to filter and sort the candidates based on the answers they give, right? So when it comes to a video interview or a Zoom call interview or even an in-person interview, you can actually make sure that if somebody doesn't have a driver's license, they don't show up in an in-person interview and waste everybody's time. And like it's not an obvious fit. So we provide that level of first level of checks as well. Also, there is a lot of interest in video interviews, which is basically some cases. Oh, you answered that you can lift 50 pounds. Can you actually take a video of you lifting a really heavy package? It may not be 50 pounds, but like people want to see if like do you have that physique? Do you have that the form that otherwise, right? Like you don't want to break your back when you're lifting heavy things day in and day out. So technology definitely plays a really big role here, and then being able to uh, connect to the recruiter's calendar and providing an easy way for candidates to set up interviews, in-person interviews. Both their calendars need to match so they can actually meet in person. In some cases, when people come in, they are asked to bring their documentation, right, like Aadhaar card or like your 10th pass or whatever the case may be. And once all that is done, once the employer agrees, internally they have an alignment. Okay, this person is ready to hire. As then the background check takes place. Typically, a criminal record verification and a motor vehicle record. Given that like you have a driver's license, we check if you have done any moving violations in the last n number of years. Again, they differ based upon the company's corporate policies. And beyond that is nowadays we are seeing a lot of trend where in the past, if you had to accept some, like as a candidate, if you want to accept an opening, you had to go see somebody and then physically sign a document. Today, all that is online as well, right? So we let companies upload their templates, and just the second before somebody needs to sign, our platform will pre-fill all the information: the candidate name, the role, where they're supposed to work, how much they are going to be paid. because all that's information we've already stored in the system, and this offer letter is generated on demand, right? And then we just give it to the applicant. They just need to digitally sign it. They will get a copy over through email or WhatsApp, whatever they prefer is, and then the HR team will get a copy, and the digital copy is saved centrally in our platform, right?
But you ensure here that all the legal compliances are conformed to.
Exactly. So we follow exactly what the company's legal practices are, and we provide it as in the platform. So they can.
Other than the company's legal provisions, especially the sort of profile of hiring that you are doing, that will involve the labor laws
Yes.
also, specifically. So, how do you ensure that those labor laws are conformed to?
So again, right, like we are only a technology platform.
Okay.
We provide, for example, we provide 100% auditability. Right,
Okay.
every action that the applicant has taken, every action that the recruiter has taken on the applicant is captured in the platform. So when somebody, for example, we see this case, right, like when a late stage startup is about to go IPO, they will all of a sudden they'll want a lot more
Hmm.
visibility into their paperwork and auditability. For us, it's baked into the platform, right? Like we work with startups all the way to IPO, pre-IPO companies, IPO companies, and like customers love our end-to-end 100% transparency. So we see more ourselves more as a tech enabler for all the compliance to work, and we expect the companies to actually enforce all the policies.
Okay. So, other than the e-commerce delivery, which are the sort of other companies who are your customers and
Yeah, so we are working with retailers. In this case, fashion consultants that sometimes you walk into.
so these are the brick and mortar
The brick
retailers.
and mortar. So they are not gig workers, but they are like blue collar. Some cases they're called gray collar workers. Uh, Again, right, like depending upon the size of the company, we have seen requirements of like, hey, we need 100 people to be hired in the next month. Some cases 600 people in the next month. Uh, the more the volume they want, the better the platform. They are able to make use of our platform.
But in case the entire involvement of the platform,
Uh-huh.
your involvement is with the hiring organization, not with the individual candidate. He
No,
or
so
she is not even aware that the platform is at the back end, right?
no. So our platform is actually split into two. One is the recruiter side. Other
Okay.
one is the candidate side. So
Okay.
on the recruiter side, the recruiter can go create all the workflows they want very easily, right? Like within a couple of hours, you can actually get an opening up and running, and any changes they make will be reflected in real time to the applicant side. On the
Okay.
applicant side, let's take a very simple scenario, right? Um, Somebody gets a WhatsApp forward saying, "Hey, there is this opening," and then it's a link to a fountain, right? And it has all the UTM encoding to for us to track where the applicant came from, right? So the applicant gets this forward, or they might see this link in a job board, or they might get it from a WhatsApp group as a referral,
Or LinkedIn, maybe.
or LinkedIn, anywhere, right? All they need is the fountain URL with the correct parameters encoded. The applicant just needs to click on it. We are completely 100% mobile optimized, which means that like you don't need to download the app. All you need is a smartphone with a web browser enabled and an internet connection, right? So essentially, our whole philosophy is we don't expect the applicants to have a desktop. Uh, we don't expect them to be able to download applications. Everything is brought to where they are. So we support WhatsApp and SMS, but WhatsApp is like the most used messaging platform
Oh,
in India,
yes.
and it's as easy as clicking on a link that shows up in WhatsApp, or you can even have a conversation with a recruiter through WhatsApp. and everything is online based. We don't, by design, we don't expect people to have phone conversations. We try to facilitate all of the kind of conversations to happen through our platform, all the way from an applicant experience. You fill out a few questions, you do your video recording, or you do your Zoom interview. From an applicant point of view, they're all directly interacting with the recruiters through the Fountain platform.
Okay, and so how does that translate into your operating business model, both from the recruiter side and as well as from the candidate side?
Yeah, so we charge only the recruiters. So
Okay.
we charge only the customers that are using our platform, and 99, actually almost 100% of the time, when we go talk to the recruiters, even they care a lot about the applicant experience, right? Because the applicant experience talks about their brand, talks about their company culture, talks about how tech savvy they are. So recruiters always are trying to make sure that, like, hey, when we show this experience to the candidates, they need to have a really good experience. So for us, even though customers are the ones that are paying us the money, applicants are our real users.
Okay. Uh, so is the process what you explained ends with the hiring, or is there a follow up post hiring once the person is recruited to a particular organization? Is there any involvement of the platform still there?
Yes. So again, this is a pain that a lot of our customers have mentioned over and over, is the churn, right?
Exactly.
Uh, for various reasons, they're not able to retain people, right? So what Fountain provides is a way to post hiring, to engage the workers, making sure that, like, on a daily basis for the first n number of days, sometimes it's 21 days, sometimes it's for 30 days, we actually send them very, very uh, scientific surveys, asking them about, like, hey, today was your first day, were you able to get your training completed, did you get your ID card, and the second day it would be like, what was your first day experience like, did you get the required number of milestones for whatever use case that may be. The point being, if somebody is going to churn before 30 days, uh, there is always the first couple of days, you will get a very good idea. And once that insight, right, like once you get this data and insight as a company, you will start seeing patterns, right? Like, for example, one of the things we are working with the customer is, there are like states and cities and hubs. So at the top level, the HR leader can actually see, okay, here is at the state level, of the 5 states, 4 are doing pretty good, or there's one state which has a lot of churn, right? Like, people are not coming in. They might realize that, like, they're not paying people enough compared to the competition in that particular state, right? Like, they were trying to pay everybody same across the states, but they realized, like, okay, it's not working in this state. They can even drill down to, okay, in the state is doing okay, let's see at the city level, and then they are able to figure out, okay, there are some cities where my supervisor is not treating their employees well, right? Or there is a problem in the process in one of the hubs, where the ID cards are not getting generated in time and nobody is getting their orders sent out, right? So what we do is, using our data analytics and AI, we expose these problem
So these
areas.
intelligence, these are a lot of intelligence. So one, how do you achieve to effectively use the analytics on that?
Yes,
You need some sort of homogeneity on this.
yes.
But these intelligence are very varied sources and they are very disparate.
Yes.
So how do you work on that homogeneity so that
And
the
and, and
analytics?
this kind of what you call disparate analytics, what we call is flexible, right? So the flexibility is in our DNA. right?
Okay.
The same platform can be used to hire delivery service partners or quick service restaurant cooks, right? Service people who are answering phone calls all day, all the way to computer engineers, for example, right? So the way our data architecture works is we anticipate that the data is not going to be the same, right? So we built an architecture around this flexibility. So no matter what kind of data, we are able to provide a very uniform quality of data analytics and insights based on the data. So that I would say that is one of our strongest points.
Okay. And what are the new features or focus areas, if you may say, for the platform that you plan maybe for the next few quarters?
Sure. Some of the things that we've invested heavily in are meaningful conversations, right? Uh, Being able to carry out a conversation through WhatsApp end to end from in your application process. That's something we released very recently. We are also working on a chatbot, right?
Okay.
Recruiters are very overworked. Uh, Applicants want a really good personal experience. How do you match these two, right? Like once you make your recruiters go answer everybody's questions, they don't have time to do anything else, right? So the challenge becomes, okay, how many recruiters do I need to hire if I have to hire so many employees, right? Like so, if it is linear, then you have a scalability, right? What we do is we bring in natural language processing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we ensure that from an applicant point of view, the messages they are getting, they are consistently. Uh, it takes a human voice, not just a human voice. It takes the voice of the brand they are interacting with itself. So from the company point of view, they just need to set up this AI chatbot system once, and we will start learning from all the data is coming in, and we'll make sure that the applicant experience is really good. And so that's one initiative. We're also starting to provide services of retention, like a post hire. Can you make sure that they are consistently engaged with your company so they don't quit and join? That's a relatively new offering. We are doing a lot of in this space again in terms of machine learning and AI, right? Because we work with so many customers, any given region, right? Like so, given that we are globally operating, let's say you are a quick service restaurant, you're opening up, and you become our customer in the state of Maharashtra. For very similar uh, restaurants in the similar geography, and we provide that analytics
Okay.
and insights on day one. Right? Like so, when somebody comes, they don't have to try out a lot of different things and say, okay, this is the best workflow. We know what workflows are best. We templatize them, and then we provide them out of the box. So, given a geography, given a particular role they're looking for, given the industry, we will be able to out of the box provide that.
So many of these insights you are templatizing, as you are mentioning. So, uh, and any of the Indian customers, my last question, are referenceable so that can sort of help the viewers
Uh,
understand.